Shim Woo-ju is the type of person who completely rejects relationships and considers loneliness the best. She went out for a drink with her friend Yoon-ju and everything was going well, but Shim Woo-ju had a premonition. Immediately afterwards, she received a text message informing her of her father's death. After that, her mood worsened and she went to another restaurant to eat. There she crossed paths with Han Dong-ji for the first time and defended him from the restaurant hostess who had miscounted his check but still blamed Han Dong-ji. Yoon-jun, Shim, and Woo-ju had an argument. The girl was sure that it would rain tomorrow. Yoon-jun thought it was strange because there was only a 10% chance of precipitation. The next day, Shim Woo-ju went about her usual business and went to her job at the drugstore and took in a probe. Meanwhile, Han Dong-ji received a call from his assistant who informed him that they were having trouble landing in Singapore. Immediately it rained, confirming Shim Woo-ju's assumption. Shim Woo-ju had an older sister named Hae-sun and a younger brother named Ji-gu who had a fight over something stupid. But this happened quite often. When Shim Woo-ju noticed the rain, she immediately left the drugstore and went to an unknown destination. Shim Woo-ju remembered her father and the fun times she had with him. At that time, Han Dong-ji was dealing with his assistant. They had a problem because Director Shin wanted to bankrupt Han Dong-ji's company because Han Dong-ji had been his subordinate who had decided to go into business. Shim Woo-ju saw many people there, including her relatives and her father's wife and mistress, Hee-ja. Shim Woo-ju immediately remembered how, as a child, she had caught her father running away with his mistress from their house with jewelry and money. She was having a quiet drink and meal when Hee-ja came up to her and demanded that Shim Woo-ju leave, but she refused to do so. Hee-ja got angry and tried to hit Shim Woo-ju, but she didn't dare to do so. Despite all of her confidence, after the incident, Shim Woo-ju locked herself in the toilet stall where she was vomiting a lot. She tried her best to be strong and not to cry, but suddenly she heard her aunt talking. They were discussing the sale of the house where Shim Woo-ju lives with her sister and brother. Shim Woo-ju ran out in shock and demanded an explanation from her aunt, but she immediately ran away, so Shim Woo-ju went to confront Hee-ja. The woman thought that Shim Woo-ju already knew about the sale and for that reason came to the funeral in such a way. Hee-ja didn't care what happened to Shim Woo-ju and her family. At that moment, Shim Woo-ju's phone rang. It was Ji-gu calling to tell her that they were being evicted. Hee-ja gave Shim Woo-ju and her relatives 2 days to move out. At that time, Song-ho, the deputy director, was at the sports club, where Han Dong-ji found him. Song-ho had recently bought an extremely expensive car, just when their business was in serious crisis. But as it turned out, the car had been bought long before the incident, so there was no quarrel between Han Dong-ji and Song-ho. As his mother had asked, Han Dong-ji went to say goodbye to her next husband. Shim Woo-ju came out of the funeral parlor, and sitting on the steps, she cried and was found by Yoon-jun. Shim Woo-ju rarely cried, so after calming her down, Yoon-jun took the girl away, although he realized that her revenge was not successful. In the evening, after waiting for her mother from the funeral home, Han Dong-ji explained the situation with his business, then the woman transferred the money to him. Han Dong-ji did not know where she got such a sum, and Hee-ja did not explain. The next day, Shim Woo-ju began with Hae-sun, Ji-gu, and Yoon-jun to pack her things for the move. They decided to move in with Shim Woo-ju's friend, Yoon-jun. Han Dong-ji. After receiving the money, things got better, and after 2 months, he had already rented a huge hall for his exhibition. When Han Dong-ji and Song-ho went to dinner, Song-ho asked where Han Dong-ji's mother had gotten the money, and he was still worried about the reason why he broke up with his ex-girlfriend. But he didn't say anything about the ex-girlfriend, and about the money, he honestly admitted that it didn't bother him at all. At that moment, Hae-sun was at her workplace in the bank, and a woman came up to her and asked her to withdraw money from her husband's account. After that, a fight broke out. The woman shouted and beat Hae-sun because she had unknowingly become the mistress of the woman's husband. As it turned out, the man had 2 names, which Hae-sun didn't realize. In the end, Shim Woo-ju came to rescue her beaten older sister and promised the woman that she would make sure that this situation would not happen again, because otherwise she would beat her sister, who had gotten involved with this man. She collected all the photos that the woman had brought as evidence and threw them away and went shopping. Suddenly, she had to take a message. Her colleague demanded that Shim Woo-ju buy tights, but she refused. Song-ho didn't recognize this girl, but Han Dong-ji was not surprised, because Song-ho rarely appeared in their company. As it turned out, Shim Woo-ju had been working for Han Dong-ji's company for a week, and because of her coldness, many people thought she was rude. She got this job because her aunt gave Shim Woo-ju Han Dong-ji's business card, hoping that at least this guy will be able to help the poor girl. After a day of work, Shim Woo-ju decided to follow Han Dong-ji and find out where he lived. She followed him, and after making sure she was alone, she started checking mailboxes to find out the guy's apartment, not expecting to find Han Dongjae standing behind her. The guy himself said that his apartment number was 2701. As it turned out, Han Dongji realized that Shim Woo-ju was being followed at the very beginning because he saw her in the cafe and in the reflection of car mirrors. The girl thought Han Dongji was too petty because he allowed her to continue following him and did not stop. But Han Dongji didn't like Shim Woo-ju's rudeness and they went home. But Shim Woo-ju went back and checked his mailbox and made sure that the apartment really belonged to him. Since Shin Woo-ju was Yoonjun's roommate now, Yoonjun saw that the girl ate a lot. Yoonjun realized that it was a bad sign because when Shim Woo-ju's mom got sick, the girl also ate a lot before selling her sports bra. Shim Woo-ju went to sleep. In the morning, Shim Woo-ju went to work and passed by her old house, where she had lived for 20 years. Later, Hee-jae came out of the house, even though she was supposed to sell the house. Afterwards, the woman met with her friends. They discussed Hee-jae moving to a new expensive house and wanted to know the source of her money, as it was rumored that she had given money to her son's business, but Hee-jae was very angry and did not answer. Shim Woo-ju calmly went to the store. There she met Han Dong-ji at the checkout. Then Shim Woo-ju made a new attempt to talk to the man and told him that she had been kicked out of the house where she had lived for 20 years and 2 days, but he was not interested in this story because he did not pity people. Shim Woo-ju was convinced of his cold-bloodedness and went to work and arrived early. She wanted to enter the principal's room, but was stopped by an assistant who thought it was strange. Shim Woo-ju also heard the rest of the staff talking about Principal Shin. Then Shim Woo-ju went to one of the staff members and asked him to prepare a report where she saw the password he was typing on his computer. Then she had an idea. Late at night, Han Dong-ji was sitting at work, but he was distracted by Song-ho, who called to invite him to the reunion. Even though Han Dong-ji didn't want to go, he agreed. Han Dong-ji explained that he didn't want a long-distance relationship and his ex-girlfriend was flying to another country. Later, when most people were either drunk or gone, one of his classmates warned Han Dong-ji about his ex-girlfriend's return to Korea. Then Han Dong-ji remembered how painful the breakup was, but when Han Dong-ji was walking home, he suddenly noticed a girl walking down the street. It was his ex-girlfriend. Han Dong-ji followed her but lost track of her near one of the buildings and walked away. As it turned out, Min-yeon also noticed him and hid from Han Dong-ji. At night, Shim Woo-ju went into the office and sat at the computer of the employee whose password she had snooped on and then went home after doing what she needed to do. In the morning, Hae-sun took the food her sister had prepared and brought it to Yoonjun's place, where the couple hinted at romance. Afterwards, they realized that Shim Woo-ju had left the office wearing different sneakers, which meant she was excited about something. In the morning, it turned out that all the important information had been published online. Everyone speculated about the spy who did it, and suspicion fell on Shim Woo-ju and the person who owned the laptop. But the head of the sales department, Jang Min, convinced everyone that the guy was not involved and he could rely on that employee. At the same time, Guy demanded that Shim Woo-ju explain what she was doing in the office at night, as she had been spotted by one of their female employees. When Han Dong-jae heard this conversation, he called Shim Woo-ju to his office to talk to her, even though he knew that she was probably to blame. After the situation, she ran to Yoonjun and drank some sedatives. She told him that she had wanted to rob Han Dong-jae earlier, but changed her mind afterwards. The final stage was their conversation in the store, and the girl decided to take revenge. So she was in the office at night, but she copied the information. Han Dong-jae called Shim Woo-ju again and took Shim Woo-ju to Director Shin's building, but the girl didn't recognize him. Not wanting to deal with it, Han Dong-jae fired Shim Woo-ju and went to Song-ho himself. When Han Dong-jae returned home, he met Shim Woo-ju. Shim Woo-ju was very drunk and explained that she definitely wouldn't spy for money. She was upset about revenge's failure. Han Dong-ji went to the security office and saw the security footage. The spy was Jang Min. He called Shim Woo-ju and asked her to meet him and read her resume. Shim Woo-ju talked about her life and home. She hoped Han Dong-ji would realize that he had robbed her of everything. When they met, Han Dong-jae explained that they had found the spy. A man suddenly appeared and tried to hit Han Dong-ji, but Shim Woo-ju stood up for him. Then Han Dong-jae remembered that he offered Shim Woo-ju to go back to work, but she said that he would regret it, although she also promised that she would try her best to make him regret it later. Han Dong-ji helped the man up, and Shim Woo-ju explained that waiting for him to get hit was foolishness, not honorable. Han Dong-ji, Song-ho, and the man went to a bar. The man was asked by his wife and ran off with a neighbor, and Han Dongji knew about their affair. But the man thought that Han Dongji was worthy because he could keep secrets. The man also thought that Han Dongji was happy because he had found a girl who could protect him. That same night, Song Ho learned the identity of the spy. In the morning, Shin Woo-ju went to work, but when she called Yoon-jun, she heard that he was at work. The guy planned to follow the girl to find out where she worked and discourage her from taking revenge. Shin Woo-ju explained that she blamed Hee-ja for her mother's illness. When Shin Woo-ju came to work, everyone treated her with contempt, especially Jang Min. Han Dongji asked her to follow Jang Min. Later, everyone gathered in Han Dongji's office for a meeting. Han Dongji didn't let on that he knew about Jang Min's betrayal. Yoon-jun went to a cafe and met Ji-gu. It turned out that Ji-gu would not take the exams because he wanted to be a musician. Hai-sun was doing calculations and fell in love again, but now with the security guard Soo-hoo. In the morning, Min Yeon came to Principal Shin and interviewed him, but suddenly she ran away and went to the sports complex where she met Song Ho. At work, Chan bullied the girl in every possible way, after which she was forced to apologize to him. But soon the man left for a meeting with Director Shin. At lunchtime, Han Dong-jae and Shin Woo-ju met by chance at a cafe. Shin Woo-ju was surprised that Han Dong-jae could still tolerate a spy, but he explained that he once tolerated his ex-girlfriend's cheating for a year. After which they went to the office together, but they were spotted by Hai-sun. Shin Woo-ju went to send packages, and Hee-ja came to the office. Shin Woo-ju realized Hee-ja had come when she brought coffee to the boss, but Hee-ja didn't recognize her. Han Dong-jae couldn't stand his mother's behavior and demanded that she not come to see him anymore. Yoon-jun persuaded Ji-gu to confess to Hai-sun, but was worried about Shin Woo-ju. Shin Woo-ju changed after seeing her father cheating on Hee-ja, which led to an accident, the girl jumping in front of her father's car. Finding herself in front of Hee-ja's car again, Shin Woo-ju left at the last minute and went back to the office and agreed to be followed. But upon meeting Jang Min, she warned him of the danger and offered to drive the company into bankruptcy. After work, Shin Woo-ju bought a pizza and went to see Yoon-jun, who persuaded her to stop her revenge. Han Dong-ji, after getting advice from a friend, decided to take a vacation, so she was invited to a cafe. Hai-sun saw Han Dong-ji and suggested that he join her and Shin Woo-ju at the cafe. Han Dong-ji agreed, but when Shin Woo-ju saw him there was a conflict and Shin Woo-ju kicked him out without even returning his backpack and scolded Hai-sun and her brother for their participation. Later that night, Hai-sun explained her action, saying that seeing Shin Woo-ju and Han Dong-ji gave her a vision of what a good couple they could be. At this time, Min Yeon was at a campground but was unable to meet Han Dong-ji, so she decided to visit him herself. Han Dong-jae received an invitation to the campsite and remembered a conversation with Min Yeon about her marriage. At that time, he confessed that he knew about it. He swore to Min Yeon that if she broke up with him like that, he would hate camping forever. At this time, Jang Min met with Director Shin and learned of the accelerated revenge plan that would lead to the destruction of Han Dong-ji's company. In the morning, Shin Woo-ju and Han Dong-ji met in the office, and there was an awkward situation between them, but Han Dong-ji was not offended. Song Ho met Director Kim, who was hiding from them. Song Ho realized that the director was refusing the contract. Hai-sun met Soo-hoo during lunch, but he showed no interest in her. She was then seen by Shin Woo-ju, explaining that it's not a good idea to fall in love thoughtlessly. Han Dong-ji met Song Ho, who was planning to take out a loan. Song Ho couldn't talk about Director Kim, who turned down the contract. After the walk, the men noticed a conversation between Shin Woo-ju and Hai-sun, where Shin Woo-ju confessed that she didn't like Han Dong-ji's back because her back was restrained with a heavy burden. Han Dong-jae heard their conversation, but Shin Woo-ju didn't care. She asked Hai-sun to finally return Han Dong-ji's backpack. After a hard day, Song Ho met with Min Yeon where they discussed business and Song Ho mentioned Director Shin. At this time, Jang Min thanked Shin Woo-ju for the warning and talked about plans to destroy the company. At this time, Min Yeon confessed that she moved into the apartment across the hall from Han Dong-ji, but didn't reveal the reason for the move back. Song Ho drove the girl away and helped her hide from Han Dong-ji's appearance. The next morning, Han Dong-ji came to see Director Kim and explained that the director's apology was unnecessary. After telling stories of betrayals, he handed him some medicine for fatigue and left. When Han Dong-jae returned to his firm, he saw Min Yeon, who had previously met with Director Shin. Director Shin explained that their competitors were about to be wiped out, and Min Yeon came to discuss this with Han Dong-jae. However, he was confused and ignored her. Memories of the time he spent with her arose in his mind, and he took Min Yeon out, saying that she should be ashamed to appear in front of him. During the night, Han Dong-ji had been drinking heavily and hurt his hand. When Song-ho called him, Han Dong-ji asked why he didn't tell him about Min Yeon's return, but suddenly, when Han Dong-ji was crossing the road, he was almost hit by a car. He was saved at the last moment by Shin Woo-ju, who scolded Han Dong-ji until she saw the terrible condition he was in. Shortly before this situation, Shin Woo-ju was supposed to meet Yoon-jun. Seeing a drinking Han Dong-ji from afar, she followed him and saved him at the last moment. The girl thought Han Dong-ji was having silly thoughts, but he explained that he wasn't thinking about it. Shim Woo-ju thought of Min Yeon, whom she had seen recently, and guessed what might have happened, but took Han Dong-ji further away. Shim Woo-ju then went to the pharmacy to treat Han Dong-ji's arm. Shim Woo-ju told the guy that he should have gotten revenge instead of letting Min Yeon interfere in his life again. Han Dong-ji explained that he didn't see the point of the place, since it would lead to constant regret. Shim Woo-ju realized that she herself was already regretting attending her father's funeral and revealed that Jang Min was luring customers over to Director Shin's side. In the morning, Shim Woo-ju left early. Jae-gu warned Yoon-jun that Shim Woo-ju had decided to clean the pharmacy as an apology for not showing up at their dinner together. Suddenly, Yoon-jun found Hae-sun coming out of the shower, and although the situation was awkward, they were able to work it out. Song-ho arrived to pick up Han Dong-jae. On the way, they discussed everything that had happened. Han Dong-ji claimed that Shim Woo-ju was definitely not in cahoots with Director Shin. When they verified Shim Woo-ju's information, it turned out that a lot of customers had left after getting more favorable terms. In the morning, Min Yeon received a call from Director Shin and realized that she needed to meet Han Dong-jae. She didn't find him at the office, so she went to Han Dong-jae's workplace where she didn't find him. After the workday, Han Dong-ji went to the hotel instead of going home. Jae-gu noticed this and told Shim Woo-ju, who thought it didn't fit in with Han Dong-ji's usual behavior. In the morning when Shim Woo-ju returned to the office, Jang Min suggested that the employees switch to another company, but when Shim Woo-ju refused, Jang Min couldn't figure out which side she was on. Calling Han Dong-ji, Shim Woo-ju offered him a chance for revenge. Shim Woo-ju, Secretary Pak Soo-heeg, and Song-ho searched for evidence against Jang Min. They found a folder with important documents hidden by him. Later, Han Dong-ji dismissed Jang Min, explaining that the man is wrong if he thinks he's weak. In the evening, Pak Soo-heeg and Song-ho left, and Shim Woo-ju waited for Han Dong-jae. But suddenly Min Yeon appeared in the office, and Shim Woo-ju was angry at the girl for tormenting Han Dong-jae. However, when Han Dong-jae himself came in, he explained to Min Yeon that she shouldn't show up anymore. She tried to explain that she had come to save Han Dong-jae's business, and Min Yeon told her that she hadn't gotten married, but Shim Woo-ju took Han Dong-ji by the hand and led him away. After an awkward pause, Han Dong-jae and Shim Woo-ju went to dinner. Shim Woo-ju was convinced that he shouldn't be alone. At the cafe, Han Dong-ji admitted that she was right and thanked her for her company. They walked back home together. On the way, they found Jae-gu working at the cafe, and a conflict started between Shim Woo-ju and Jae-gu. Han Dong-ji was confused, and Shim Woo-ju insisted that Han Dong-ji leave and stay together with her brother. Jae-gu approached Han Dong-ji and pushed him away, and Shim Woo-ju, catching the guy, hugged Han Dong-jae. The next morning, Shim Woo-ju questioned Yoon-jun about whether Yoon-jun knew about Jae-gu's plans. Yoon-jun admitted that he knew everything, but he didn't answer any other questions. Later, Director Shin Min came to Han Dong-ji and announced that all preparations had been completed. Han Dong-ji realized that Shin Min wanted revenge for firing the spy and leaving 2 employees. Shin Min recalled how he begged Han Dong-ji to stay and how his drunkenness caused him to miss a call from his wife who had passed out. Song-ho, who appeared at that moment, finally ruined the director's mood as he started to launch the publicity for his exhibition. The office staff decided to get together and discuss the situation. Shim Woo-ju continued to look for her brother, but to no avail. Eventually, she walked into a cafe where she met Han Dong-jae. Shim Woo-ju saw that Han Dong-ji was upset, but consoled him, saying that he wouldn't give up. She then headed home, staying late to admire the night city and reflect on her feelings for Han Dong-jae. At work, the number of employees was dwindling, and Yoon-jun asked Shim Woo-ju to quit, but she promised to do so when she felt the need. Song-ho told Han Dong-ji about the investment offer from Min Yeon, but Han Dong-jae decided not to take the money. Han Dong-ji started looking for sources of money and wanted to ask Uncle Taehan for help, but ended up calling a friend. At the same time, Hee-ja met Min Yeon and wanted to borrow 10 million from the girl. Hee-ja planned to sell a house to pay Min Yeon back the money. Later, Shim Woo-ju met Min Yeon at the office. She decided not to reveal her relationship with Han Dong-jae. Ji-gu spent time at a bar with a friend, admitting that he wanted to go home but was afraid that no one was looking for him. Hae-sun went on a date with Soo-hoo. They had little in common. Plus Yoon-jun, who suddenly appeared, interrupted her. Shim Woo-ju received a call from her aunt after hearing about Hee-ja's shenanigans. After hearing that the woman had moved into her house, Shim Woo-ju ran there and saw Hee-ja's new boyfriend. The real estate agent called Han Dong-ji, and Shim Woo-ju demanded that they open the door for her. As it turned out, Han Dong-ji came to Hee-ja's house to find out where the previous tenants had gone. The woman reacted indifferently, so Han Dong-ji went to a real estate agency nearby to inquire about the family who had previously lived there. The woman promised to notify Han Dong-ji if a girl from that family showed up again. However, when Shim Woo-ju arrived, Hee-ja called the police. The girl was taken to the station, and then the aunt took her from there. The aunt handed Han Dong-ji's business card, explaining that he was trying to find Shim Woo-ju to get her house back. Shim Woo-ju regretted not finding out sooner and causing problems at the firm. She didn't show up for work that day. Shin Min's company faced a shortage of investors. Yoon-jun received a letter from his mother about a blind dating agency but refused to participate, saying that he has a girlfriend, Hae-sun. At the same time, Hae-sun went on a date with Soo-hoo, who revealed that he thought she was easy, and later Yoon-jun saw them kissing. Shim Woo-ju came to Min Yeon, demanding that she move out and threatening to stalk her. So they ended up at a bar, but Min Yeon drank too much and Shim Woo-ju had to carry her home. In the morning, Yoon-jun asked Hae-sun for help, and Shim Woo-ju cleaned Jennifer's house. But when she left the apartment, she met Han Dong-ji. Shim Woo-ju promised that she could explain why she slept over at Min Yeon's place, and said she wanted to help Han Dong-ji. Later, they were spotted by Yoon-jun, who was excited about the situation. Shim Woo-ju tried to convince the guy that she had everything under control. Hee-ja's new boyfriend tried unsuccessfully to find the will for the house. Han Dong-ji was discussing the business plan with his assistants, and that's when Song-ho noticed that he had a crush on Shim Woo-ju. Song-ho shared his observations with Han Dong-ji, but the latter denied his feelings. Ji-kun, now living with Han Dong-ji, saw a picture of the boy and Hee-ja. Han Dong-ji met Min Yeon in the elevator and explained that she could stay in her house since he didn't care. After work, Shim Woo-ju told Yoon-jun her view of what was going on. However, Yoon-jun had already called Shim Woo-ju's mother, which seriously pissed her off. He stated that he couldn't watch Shim Woo-ju fall in love with their enemy's son. Despite her initial denial, Shim Woo-ju soon realized that her desire to make Han Dong-ji less lonely was a manifestation of the love Yoon-jun was talking about. Shim Woo-ju, having been drinking heavily, sat down on a bench near Han Dong-ji's house. Ji-gu, noticing her condition, wrote to Han Dong-ji, asking him to take care of Shim Woo-ju. Han Dong-ji rushed over to the girl, and a conversation took place between them. Shim Woo-ju asked him not to fall in love with her. At this time, Shin Min had investment problems and didn't have enough money even for his salary, and Song-ho decided to sell his car to help their business. Han Dong-ji thought back to the conversation with Shim Woo-ju and tried to realize his feelings. Min Yeon came to Han Dong-ji and explained her actions, admitting that they were both to blame for the situation, and revealed that she was afraid Han Dong-ji didn't want a serious relationship, but Ji-gu heard it. Shim Woo-ju started looking for a part-time job to quit and asked Yoon-jun not to criticize her, and Hae-sun felt less and less comfortable on her date with Soo-hoo. In the morning, Shim Woo-ju thanked the realtor and gave Han Dong-ji the message that they didn't need the house anymore. Han Dong-ji, seeing his sewn button, asked Shim Woo-ju not to do that again. The employees went to lunch, and Chang Min tried to find out from one of the girls about the company's business. The girl didn't reveal important details, but confirmed that Shim Woo-ju was still working with them. This made Chang Min suspicious. In the morning, Min Yeon, trying to get some sleep, heard the intercom buzzing. Shin Min asked Min Yeon to answer his message and clarify whether he should expect an investment fee. Hae-sun, along with a friend from the bank, was at lunch and happened to cross paths with Yoon-jun. The friend thought Yoon-jun was a presentable person, but Hae-sun did not view him in a romantic way. All the employees gathered at the office to have lunch and get to know each other better. Shim Woo-ju refused to join, explaining that she was going to quit after her contract ended and didn't want to meet new people. After learning from Yoon-jun where Ji-gu works, Shim Woo-ju headed to the karaoke place. After the employees left, Song-ho started asking Han Dong-ji about his feelings and relationship with Shin Woo-ju. Han Dong-ji silently went home, where he met up with Min Yeon. He advised her to stop punishing herself, and as he was about to leave, Min Yeon suddenly hugged him. This moment was noticed by Shin Min, who decided to intervene, but he was stopped by Shim Woo-ju, not allowing him to interfere. Shortly before that, Shim Woo-ju came to see Ji-gu. The guy confessed that he wanted to pursue music and asked Shim Woo-ju to get his stuff from Han Dong-jae. When she arrived, she saw what had happened. Shin Min didn't interfere, but in return, Shim Woo-ju needs to be told everything. At home, Han Dong-jae gave Min Yeon medicine, but explained that he would do it for anyone. At home, Han Dong-jae contacted Shim Woo-ju, apologized for Ji-gu, and offered to pick up his things, but Shim Woo-ju refused. In the morning, Hae-sun scolded Ji-gu for running away and picked out an outfit to meet Yoon-jun's parents. Shin Min was unhappy with the current state of affairs at the company. Director Kim's contract was broken, and Shin Min demanded that Chang Min deal with Shim Woo-ju. But Shim Woo-ju did not return Chang Min's calls. At that moment, the team discussed hiring an ad man. Song Ho and Park Soo-hyo decided to have Han Dong-jae and Shim Woo-ju take on the task, given their skills. Everyone has already realized that something is going on between them. Hae-sun's meeting with Yoon-jun's parents didn't go well, so Yoon-jun and Hae-sun went out for a drink together, where they started to bond. After work, Shim Woo-ju wanted to leave, but Han Dong-jae caught up with her, and they had another fight because of her coldness and rudeness. The next day, Uncle Tae-hun showed up at the office and suggested that the team visit Han Dong-jae's camping cottage. At the same time, Shin Min's situation was getting worse by the day. Director Kim was furious because he had heard about the contract termination from his bosses and not from Shin Min. When Tae-hun was leaving, Song Ho tried to invite Shim Woo-ju, but Han Dong-jae asked his friend to leave the girl alone. Tae-hun memorized that moment. Later at dinner, they discovered that Han Dong-jae was completely oblivious to what he had eaten. His thoughts were preoccupied with Shim Woo-ju. Min Yeon, filled with hope, remembered Han Dong-jae's promises and decided to clean herself and her house, hoping to invite him over for tea. Hae-sun was hurt by Han Dong-jae's act and decided not to renew her work contract. Park Soo-hyo informed Han Dong-jae of her departure, but he didn't seem interested, expecting such a thing. Shin Min had been drinking heavily and came to threaten Jennifer. Shim Woo-ju stood up for Min Yeon, at which point Shin Min hit her over the head with a rock. Min Yeon was sent to the hospital, where Han Dong-jae arrived. Upon seeing him, Shim Woo-ju silently took the guy's hand. Earlier, Han Dong-jae had called Song Ho, informing him about Shin Min's attack and that Shim Woo-ju was hurt. When Han Dong-jae arrived at the hospital, Song Ho held him back so that Han Dong-jae wouldn't attack the man. He then went to Shim Woo-ju's room. Shin Min cried and began to feel regret. When Shim Woo-ju woke up, she explained that she was a professional archer but didn't dodge to avoid further conflict with Shin Min. After Oni went out to eat, and Han Dong-jae explained that Shim Woo-ju could always come to his house if she needed help. Min Yeon was anxious and she was comforted by Song Ho. At home, Shim Woo-ju made long excuses about the scar but didn't tell what had happened to her. When Shim Woo-ju came to the office, they saw Han Dong-jae. The guy offered Shim Woo-ju lunch and they left together. Director Kim came to Han Dong-jae to discuss the contract, but Han Dong-jae didn't care since he was with Shim Woo-ju. He revealed that he once waited for Director Kim for 5 hours. Mom came to Yoon-jun wondering why the two sisters and Ji-gu were living together with a guy. Yoon-jun explained that it was more convenient for them. The mother demanded to find out which of the two girls he liked better. Hae-sun on a date with Soo-hoo talked about panic attacks after being beaten up. The boyfriend understood and comforted her. Shim Woo-ju and Han Dong-jae went to a coffee shop after work, and Han Dong-jae suggested Shim Woo-ju go camping. Shim Woo-ju agreed, and Han Dong-jae explained that he hadn't been camping in a long time and missed the place, and he'd even built himself a tent at home. Uncle Tae-hun was glad to see the guy next to the girl. Ai-sun with Soo-hoo went to another cafe after a walk. After hearing Soo-hoo mock her illness, she left, stopped taking her phone, and told Yoon-jun about what happened. The latter felt sorry for her while Hae-sun cried. At the same time, Min Yeon was still feeling ill and Song Ho came over with porridge for her to eat. Hae-sun turned off her phone because of the breakup. And Shim Woo-ju was asleep in the car and her phone was on silent mode, so Ji-gu couldn't alert the girls that their mother was coming. The mother arrived, but he was no longer fit. The woman also met Heeja's new boyfriend. Ji-gu managed to get the woman away and they went to Yoon-jun's house. After hearing Yoon-jun's side of the story, the mother was mad. After returning home, she continued to cry. Shim Woo-ju left home and received a message from Han Dong-jae, who said that he decided to remove the tent and got rid of the trap thanks to meeting Shim Woo-ju. In the morning, Mom was preparing a celebratory breakfast because it was Shim Woo-ju's birthday. Because of the tense atmosphere, Hae-sun suggested that everyone go to work. Shim Woo-ju went to work, but at the last minute, she came home and saw her mom crying. Shem Woo-ju confessed that she went to her father's funeral, explained how it went, and expressed regret. Han Dong-ji knew about Shem Woo-ju's birthday, and they discussed it with Song-ho. Song-ho was glad that his friend could now discuss more than just work. Yoon-jun, who was in the store, remembered the conversation with Hae-sun. Then Hae-sun realized that she had feelings for Yoon-jun because she could be real with him, but Yoon-jun ran away, so he invited Hae-sun to discuss it. At work, Hae-sun was approached by Soo-hoo, who was unhappy about breaking up with Shem Woo-ju and demanded an explanation. At that time, the firm received a resume from Chang-min who wanted to go back to work, but everyone just laughed. Han Dong-jae decided to buy a cake for Shem Woo-ju to congratulate. Hae-sun met with Soo-hoo, who kept expressing displeasure, but she ended the conversation and wished him good luck. Shem Woo-ju brought her mom to Ji-goo's workplace so the woman could see the conditions under which her son works. Ji-goo wasn't happy to see his mom here because Han Dong-jae came in and Ji-goo knew he was Hee-ja's son, though he didn't know what the woman did. But the conversation between Han Dong-jae and mom went well, so mom suggested her daughter to take a walk with Han Dong-jae. During the walk to the cafe, Han Dong-jae revealed that her mom asked why he liked Shem Woo-ju, and revealed that Shem Woo-ju seems cold but is actually kind. Han Dong-jae confessed that he likes Shem Woo-ju because she seems like a very strong person, motivating him to move forward. Chang-min came into the office and begged Song-ho to bring him back to the company, telling him about Shem Woo-ju's betrayal. In the morning, Min Yeon met with Han Dong-jae and explained that she would be moving out and wished Han Dong-jae happiness. Han Dong-jae confessed that he wanted to be happy with Shem Woo-ju. When Min Yeon returned home, she received a call from Hee-ja and demanded that Min Yeon come to the necessary address. Also, Hee-ja wanted to sell Shem Woo-ju's house for $2 billion, but the realtor thought it was ridiculous. When Shem Woo-ju's mom was returning home, she was met by Hee-ja's new boyfriend who offered to see the woman off. Hae-sun went to Yoon-jun, but the guy was obviously angry with her, not wanting to be the object of her attention. This made Hae-sun angry since she never asked Yoon-jun to fall in love with her. Song-ho tried to figure out if Shem Woo-ju was guilty and invited her to the rooftop, where she talked about her help in ruining the company. But Song-ho was more concerned about Shem Woo-ju and Han Dong-jae's mutual liking for each other. After talking to Song-ho, Shem Woo-ju thought for a long time about how to tell Han Dong-jae the truth. Unexpectedly, Han Dong-jae invited her home, told her about her mother, and offered to stay the night. Shem Woo-ju agreed. Han Dong-jae went to the store, and Shem Woo-ju contemplated whether to leave. She decided to stay and called Hae-sun, warning her that she wouldn't be spending the night at home, planning to spend the night with Han Dong-jae. Hae-sun made an excuse in front of her mother. Han Dong-jae and Shem Woo-ju spent a long evening discussing all the events. The conversation ended with a kiss, and they spent the night together. Early in the morning, Shem Woo-ju left after making breakfast for Han Dong-jae and leaving a note. The mother, despite Hae-sun's excuse, recognized that her daughter wasn't home but didn't ask around. Upon returning to work, Shem Woo-ju called Song-ho to talk. She told him about her attitude toward Han Dong-jae and asked for a little more time before telling him on her own. Song-ho agreed, and Shem Woo-ju went back to work, where she met Han Dong-jae. She was uncomfortable looking him in the eye. Yoon-jun went on a blind date, but it ended unsuccessfully, and Hae-sun decided to change his lifestyle and stop entertaining himself with company. After the failed date, Yoon-jun drank a lot and was visited by Hae-sun. He told her his hatred of awkwardness and his apprehension about the possible awkwardness between him and Hae-sun. She promised not to mention her feelings. In the evening, Han Dong-jae was returning home with Song-ho, warning that Shem Woo-ju would not come to the show and she would not renew her contract. Shem Woo-ju met Min Yeon, who told her about her plans to leave, knowing that Han Dong-jae wants to be happy with Shem Woo-ju. Earlier, Hee-ja's boyfriend for $30 million offered to tell Kim Hyo-do how to get the house back, but she refused. After returning home, the man packed his bags to move out from Hee-ja because of the huge debts. He hoped to use her money to pay off the debts after selling the house. Hee-ja sobbed, demanding that he leave his belongings and not take her jewelry, threatening a lawsuit. It turned out that Hee-ja had hidden the will to become an heiress. In the morning, Hee-ja told her children what had happened and that their father would never do such a thing. In the morning, Min Yeon was in the middle of selling an apartment and met a young couple, but Hee-ja appeared to be sarcastic to Jennifer, demanding that the girl take her calls. In order to get Hee-ja off her back, Min Yeon talked about the reason for breaking up with Han Dong-jae and that the reason was also Hee-ja. Han Dong-jae heard the conversation and apologized to Jennifer. Min Yeon, Han Dong-jae demanded an explanation from Hee-ja, but she played the victim. Shim Woo-ju returned to work, where Han Dong-ji asked her to renew her contract so he wouldn't be lonely. Kim Hyo-do and Ji-gu went to their aunt's house and learned about Shim Woo-ju being picked up by the police one day. Yoon-jun and Hae-sun met up and went to a karaoke place where they saw Shim Woo-ju and Han Dong-ji and asked them to join them. Everyone had fun and listened to Ji-gu's songs. After karaoke, Kim Hyo-do invited Han Dong-ji to dinner, and he just started to guess that Han Dong-ji has a girlfriend. Han Dong-ji remembers his forgotten bag and Shim Woo-ju goes to retrieve it. Hae-sun learns from Yoon-jun about Han Dong-ji, but not the whole story. When Shim Woo-ju returns, Hae-sun slaps her and accuses Shim Woo-ju of not thinking about their family. Yoon-jun explains who Han Dong-ji is, which angers Hae-sun even more. In the morning, Kim Hyo-do has already prepared all the dishes and sends Ji-gu to take them to Han Dong-ji's house. There, he met up with Hee-ja, who was rushing to her buyers and ended up successfully selling the house. This was reported to her ex-boyfriend, but he still had a recording of the phone call where the woman talked about how she was going to take the house. At work, Han Dong-ji and Shim Woo-ju agree to talk, but Hae-sun tells her mother everything and regrets hitting her sister. Hae-sun is sure that Han Dong-ji didn't know about the house. Shim Woo-ju quits his job after hearing about the incident. Han Dong-ji and his partner are discussing the exhibition when Song-ho returns. He told Han Dong-ji about Shim Woo-ju's actions, and Han Dong-ji, shocked, decided to talk to her personally. When Han Dong-ji finally contacted Shim Woo-ju, she sent the address of her old house. After telling him her story, she explained why she couldn't tell him before. Han Dong-ji realized that she had always wanted to tell him the truth, and he even thanked her for saving his business, since she couldn't destroy it. Shim Woo-ju said that her family was already aware of what was going on, and they wouldn't be able to meet again. Han Dong-ji accepted her decision. He kept recalling the moments with Shim Woo-ju and her words. After the exhibition, Han Dong-ji went to the realtor services and found out that his mother had already sold the house, but Hee-ja could not be contacted. At that time, Hee-ja went to Uncle Tae-hun's house to pick up the will, but he said he burned it. Han Dong-ji announced to the company that he was going on a week-long vacation. To Song-ho, he explained that it was okay and he needed to take care of business. Song-ho felt guilty for interfering in his friend's relationship. Min-yeon understood Song-ho's feelings and confessed that she now wanted to keep Han Dong-ji happy too. Shim Woo-ju went back to work at the pharmacy with Yoon-jun and recalled the conversation with her mother. Kim Hyo-do forbade her daughter from going near Han Dong-ji. Shim Woo-ju also warned Yoon-jun of her intention to quit. Ji-gu began to regret his inattention to Shim Woo-ju. At home, Shim Woo-ju remarked that Han Dong-ji's fare was a success and he took the lead. Hae-sun called Shim Woo-ju, inviting her to dinner, and explained that she had put aside money and her mom had added her own, so they were moving to a new house. Hae-sun didn't want Shim Woo-ju to accidentally meet Han Dong-ji. Han Dong-ji visited Uncle Tae-hun and reminisced about his last camping trip with Shim Woo-ju. His uncle handed him a will, and after reading it, Han Dong-ji realized that the house belonged to Shim Woo-ju and her family. The will was given before the man died. Hee-ja's ex-boyfriend tried to contact Shim Woo-ju, providing call records to prove the fraud, but Shim Woo-ju told him to get behind Hee-ja because she had already gotten her revenge. When Hae-sun returned from work, Yoon-jun was waiting for her and invited her to have lunch together. After lunch, he apologized to her and the conversation continued. Hae-sun confessed that she was especially hurt because of Shim Woo-ju's secret, which was more important to Yoon-jun. She wished she could be closer to him, but explained that she knew it was impossible. So she leaves soon and their relationship ends. When Han Dong-jae returned home, he talked to his mother and told her that he had been agonizing over her endless stream of boyfriends all this time. He also talked about the will, and that's when the woman realized that her life was ruined. After leaving Han Dong-ji's house, he walked away. Shim Woo-ju reflected on all that had happened and called her mother, explaining that the house belonged to them. She didn't want to sue, not wanting to ruin Han Dong-ji's life, and hoped they could be happy even without the house. But Han Dong-ji was standing behind and heard the whole conversation. Han Dong-ji shared the whole truth with Shim Woo-ju, making her take the will. He explained that he needed to tell his family, and Shim Woo-ju realized that he wanted her to be happy too, living in his house. Hee-ja tried to call Han Dong-ji, but after remembering his words, she realized her mistakes and decided to clean his house, helping with his clothes. After walking Shim Woo-ju to the house, Han Dong-jae returned. At the house, Shim Woo-ju showed the will to Hae-sun and the latter cried. When Han Dong-jae returned home, he found Hee-ja gone and her things folded. He had been waiting for this moment all his childhood for this kind of behavior from his mother. Hee-ja went back to Shim Woo-ju's house and wanted to clarify the situation and negotiate the buyer's payments, but she was accused of fraud. Shim Woo-ju along with Hae-sun and Yoon-jun went to see a lawyer. The lawyers advised to sue, but Shim Woo-ju didn't want to do that. She agreed to meet with Han Dong-ji to discuss and asked him to deal with her mother without going to court. Han Dong-ji came to work and explained to Song-ho that he wanted to quit the company. He needed money to buy back the house. The relationship between Hae-sun and Yoon-jun started to get better, though Hae-sun didn't know where it would lead yet. When Shim Woo-ju met Han Dong-ji, it was a difficult goodbye, but Han Dong-ji used that meeting as an excuse for the next one. Hee-ja started packing her things when Kim Hyo-do showed up. The woman warned her that Hee-ja should thank her son or she would have sued long ago. Han Dong-ji apologized for his mother to Kim Hyo-do and promised to deal with her. Kim Hyo-do agreed not to sue, but ex-boyfriend Hee-ja filed a police report against her for fraud. Kim Hyo-do, after gathering all the children, explained that she no longer blamed Han Dong-ji and it was her husband and Hee-ja's fault. She decided to trust Han Dong-ji and let him settle the matter. Shim Woo-ju tried to call Han Dong-ji to thank him, but he was busy since Hee-ja had come to his house. The woman explained that she wanted to be a better person, but it seemed like it was too late. Han Dong-ji convinced her otherwise, and they went to the police station in the morning. After Han Dong-ji came to Song-ho's office, Song-ho told him that he had decided to hire Jennifer. Life slowly started to get better, and Shim Woo-ju remembered that her mom had asked that when they sorted out the house, they invite Han Dong-ji over for dinner, so she left the room waiting for him. At this time, Han Dong-ji was in a musical instrument store with Ji-gu and bought him a guitar that he liked. He then bought a bouquet of flowers and went to see the girl. When Kim Hyo-do discussed everything with Han Dong-ji, she told him that now he could come to their place anytime he wanted. Then Shim Woo-ju and Han Dong-ji talked, and the girl asked for a little more time to get herself together. Hee-ja's situation was difficult. She was threatened with jail, and she came to Shim Woo-ju's aunt's house every day. In the evening, Shim Woo-ju shared her feelings with Yoon-jun, admitting that it was difficult for her, but she didn't regret meeting Han Dong-jae. Han Dong-jae decided to wrap things up at the company and announced to Song-ho that he wouldn't be returning. The whole company threw a farewell party for Han Dong-ji and he left. 3 days later, Auntie called Shim Woo-ju, telling her that Hee-ja was looking for her. When Shim Woo-ju arrived, Hee-ja didn't recognize the girl, but they talked. Hee-ja blamed Shim Woo-ju for everything, but the latter explained that she didn't hold a grudge against her and confessed that she loved Han Dong-jae. They signed a peace agreement to keep Hee-ja out of jail. After resolving the house problem, Ji-gu was packing to move, and Yoon-jun noticed his guitar, which was Han Dong-ji's parting gift. Shim Woo-ju invited Han Dong-ji for one last meeting at his favorite place, and at that meeting, they ended things without tears. Han Dong-ji thanked Shim Woo-ju for the support and love she provided him. Afterward, they hugged one last time and said goodbye. After a while, Yoon-jun realized his loneliness and that he missed Hae-sun. A year passed, and he was still working at the pharmacy and Hae-sun was still working at the bank. Yoon-jun asked her to meet up, but she was called to dinner for a friend's wedding. When they got home, Yoon-jun started discussing Hae-sun's friend's wedding and then asked Hae-sun if she wanted to be his wife. This was unexpected news, since she had previously pretended to be his girlfriend so that Yoon-jun wouldn't get married. Now Yoon-jun missed Hae-sun and wanted only her in his house. She agreed to become his spouse. At the firm, the relationship between Song-ho and Min Yeon got better, and they became closer. Shim Woo-ju also went back to work doing exhibitions at another firm. At work, she met Paek Soo-hyo, who told her that Han Dong-ji had moved out of his house. Shim Woo-ju then went to the place where Han Dong-ji used to live and went to a cafe where they used to frequent. Then she met Yoon-jun. Yoon-jun understood that the girl was having a very hard time. Han Dong-ji, as he used to want to do, bought a trailer and started traveling. Meeting up with friends, he was in Seoul regularly and visited their favorite cafe with Shim Woo-ju. One night, Hae-sun came to Shim Woo-ju's house and explained that the last time they met, their mom had allowed Han Dong-ji to call, inviting him to dinner. That meant that no one else was against their pairing. A year passed, and Han Dong-ji was still revisiting his correspondence with Shim Woo-ju and getting bored. But it was time for Ji-gu's debut, to which he invited both Shim Woo-ju and Han Dong-ji. Ji-gu realized that Han Dong-ji might not come, but hoped at least his sister would show up. When Han Dong-ji arrived, another artist was already performing, so he left. However, by the time Shim Woo-ju returned, Han Dong-ji came back with a bouquet of flowers. Shim Woo-ju didn't notice Han Dong-ji, but saw the change in her brother's reaction. And then they met gazes under Jaegu's joyful smile and beautiful song. A year later, they were completely different people, but with the same feelings.